Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is the incredibly talented Michael Longoria, who you may know as the guy who lit up the stage in Jersey Boys, Hairspray, and as a founding member of the Midtown Men. For more than a decade, he's been delivering those high-octane, harmony-drenched 1960s sounds to make you want to roll the windows down and cruise. Now he's back with his brand new album, To Catch a Wave, Michael Longoria and The Surfnotes, a joyful, fresh take on the Beach Boys' greatest hits packed with the powerhouse vocals and ridiculously tight, infectious harmonies of the surf notes. It just dropped a week ago, and it's already making every playlist feel like summer. I listened to it yesterday, just top to bottom,
I love
and
that.
I was just transported like right away. It's
Yes.
it's just amazing how that could just take you to a whole different place.
Isn't that crazy? And
Yeah,
it's also like that it's a place in our mind, right? Like the sound waves that you're hearing are literally causing your brain to envision where you're at. And that's like the magic of music and the magic of songs that are able to really capture not only an era, but like really a vibe, right? Like you really feel like you're in California or at least in the sunshine.
exactly. And that's the amazing part about it too, where it's not just the area you're capturing, but like you said, a vibe. Like it really is just taking you somewhere else, putting you in a different mindset, no matter where you are. And the fact that they're also like updated renditions, which it's so nice
Yeah.
and fun too. And it really just created a joyful energy, which is great. And I'm wondering, just to start with, what were your first inspirations in terms of becoming a performer in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a house where my mom was a singer. So my mom was a mariachi singer. So I learned music in like Spanish, and I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't understand it, but like I learned songs that way. And I really find that that was a unique way to learn music in the beginning because it really forced me to like interpret the emotion of a song. And even though I didn't know what I was verbally saying, my emotions knew exactly what I was saying. And I was able to like emote vocally and learn the lyrics, obviously, but learn them in the songs primarily through an emotional.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the power of music too. I grew up in a similar household, like Puerto Rican household, but I never fully
Yes.
learned Spanish, but my grandparents did. But I was around the music all the time. And it's amazing how that can just kind of sit in you and leave an effect.
Yeah, music is definitely like a uniting force, right? And I don't know about probably you as well. Like we lived in the middle of both cultures, right? Growing up in America and yet also having this really rich culture in a different language that had a completely other musical influence, different instruments and different ways of singing. Like the in mariachi music, the grita, when they're screaming at the top of their lungs. That's how I look back. I'm like, oh wow, that's how I first really engaged a falsetto without really knowing that that was falsetto. But like when you're screaming that high note, it's kind of where I sing all my Frankie Valley notes. I'm like, oh, that's kind of the same placement, that I kind of learned from again from another culture that was my parents' childhood. So it was kind of good and awesome to know that even that music was able to kind of guide me throughout my life in music.
Yeah, and it shows. I mean, your career is so entrenched in the music and performances, and obviously releasing an album takes a lot of passion and hard work, and
Yes.
working with other people and putting your all your heart in it. I know that must have been kind of an ordeal, even taking songs that are beloved to you and to others, and finding ways to reinvigorate them in a different way, which is always a complicated
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, well, I discovered them like I'll say I rediscovered the Beach Boys because I always, knew about them. I grew up with them. I even sang one of their songs when I toured with the original Jersey Boys, the Midtown Men, when we sang other 60s groups. I would sing Wouldn't It Be Nice? And, I did know that it was a Beach Boys song and I made it my own, but I never really thought, well, let me look at all the other, there's like 2 years ago, I was needing some inspiration. It had been since 2019 since I released an album, so it'd been a long time. A lot of stuff had happened. There was a pandemic. My father had passed away. My group was deciding we were going to take a big break. So it was like all this transitional things that were kind of being forced upon me as life happens. Life literally does that to you artistically. It just kind of like muted me for a while. And it wasn't until I rediscovered the Beach Boys that I kind of got the inspiration to really sing again and really get my own perspective on a catalog. In my other albums, I take on a specific thing. Like, so there's a Broadway album. So I took on my greatest hits of Broadway. with the Christmas album, it's all 60s Christmas songs. So I really thought if I could focus on Beach Boys and see if it inspired me enough to do that, it would be a really cool project, you know? And it was just going to be a project, not even something really major. But once I really dove into their catalog and listened to the lyrics from a theatrical standpoint, you know, I'm an actor. So listening to them as like little 3-minute plays and these little characters that exist in the writings of a 20 something year old from the 60s, right? Suddenly, 50 years later, I'm hearing them again all for the first time, and I'm really relating to them, which is odd, right? Because I didn't grow up like Brian Wilson or Mike Love at all. I mean, we did share that we both grew up in California, right? We all grew up in California, but their life was very different than mine, and they grew up in a different era. But 50 years later, their work is coming to me in a way that I needed it, way that I didn't even realize I needed it, right? And all of a sudden, their vibrations are reinvigorating my artistic life. And I just had to like make my own version of the songs that I really connected to. This album is the 12 songs, you know, they're so hard to pick, but 12 songs of the ones that really touched me in a way. And it's really from the perspective of one character, you know, like the Beach Boys was a group. So like they would trade off, you hear a different voice on a different song. This album is all from one voice, so it's interesting to hear their work through the perspective of one character as if it were almost like a musical.
Yeah, and it feels that way going through the album, like I said, from top to
Yeah.
bottom. It's amazing hearing your process of getting that fire lit inside you again and the way that you arrived at that. And it just makes me curious what advice you would have to others who, whether they're in a creative outlet or something else and they have a dream and they're just feeling stuck or they're disappointed by no's and closed doors. How do you overcome those questions?
Well, I'm kind of like figuring that you're never going to be undisappointed or not disappointed from the nose. You're always going to get a little bit hurt by these things. And, you know, they always say, oh, you have to have a tough skin. But yeah, you could have a tough skin, but it's still going to suck, you know? Like, so for me, where I find the joy is really in finding opportunities to create your own work, whether that's like curating a concert for you or for you and your friends, getting a group of musicians that you love together and doing one night of music where you invite people and you post about it and you get these amazing videos and just really taking charge of your own artistic journey because ultimately like Broadway and like parts and musicals, those are like that's like the cherry on top. Those are like the magical moments that happen, right? But the rest of your life, you really have to fill it with artistic endeavor. You really have to find how are you as an artist going to do what you love. And for me, like I was like I had some gigs here and there, like where I was doing my Midtown Men stuff, but you know, nothing really turned me like so like a child again. Like I felt like I was going back to school. You know, really like diving into that's what they said in this song. What like you know songs that I thought I knew all about from before, and suddenly I was like really hearing them like from an actor's perspective, from a man's perspective. You know, somebody who finally has lived and lost love. You know, and to finally hear it from like you know out of the mouths of babes, right? This guy was a child genius writing these beautiful emotions in melody, and now I'm able to recreate them and also make them my own because like it is a skeleton of them, but then I also added whatever I heard on top of it. I would like go in the studio after I'd done the skeleton and just literally improv and like we love that, okay, no, we don't like that. Yeah, there's certain times I was like no, don't do that. So I was really able to like give my own heart and soul by really using their text and those melodies.
What's amazing about you describing that process is it definitely shows the actor side of you too. Like you're creating a character
Yeah.
within the music, which is a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is that like, you know, I'm so used to singing like Frankie Valli and like the high falsetto in a specific kind of way. These songs, like, because some of them are like start really low, right? So like way lower than I would normally choose to sing. But Mike Love, for example, he classified himself as a bass. So some of those songs, you know, I'm picking up good vibrations. I was like, you know, really, really, really getting low in there and figuring out where that voice is. And all of a sudden there was like a new guy was coming out of me. And I was like, who is that? And then I would listen to it back and I'd be like, wait a minute, that I mean, it's cool, but like that sounds like a totally different version of me. and to also be able to like sing all the backups and really harmonize with myself and like feel from an emotional vibrational like sonic way the line in every single part of your chakra or your vocal tones, like to be able to say a line like let him run wild. There's an emotional song right there, which was like one of the B songs, right? It was a song that people didn't really know, and it's also about like loving somebody who loves somebody else, and you're encouraging them to let him run wild because he's going to treat you wrong. And to say that as a bass, as a tenor, as an alto, and as a soprano, like it really, in a way, it's like therapeutic. Like I was able to like get all that out of my body. And I feel like when people are able to sing along, and like when we're on the radio and we get the gift of free music, when you know a song and when you get to sing along to it and sing along harmony and all those different things, you're really giving your soul and your body the chance to speak out things that it probably needs to speak out, and in different levels of vibration. That's kind of what this project has taught me, is that like, I mean, it's kind of like more headspacey, right? So that it's like music is not just like something that I love to do. It's not just something that I was born to do with my mom, raising me that way. It's something that once I'm doing it, I realize that other people are affected by it and they sing back and they experience the joy that I'm experiencing. The fact that I rediscovered this amazing catalog and I can maybe introduce it to someone else, like I would love that to be the goal of this project. That I discovered something that turned me on again and brought me this joy. And here it is, world. Like, look at these amazing songs that maybe you didn't know, or maybe you forgot about, or maybe you didn't listen to in this way. So that's kind of like, the big picture of like why I really just couldn't keep it to myself.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about how those songs bring different levels for you because of the different tones and the levels of your voice that you have to go to. And it makes me
Yeah.
curious about songs like Good Vibrations because it's such an iconic song. So how did you approach reinterpreting that and all the other songs on the album? And what was your biggest creative decision in general for the album?
Well, okay. Luckily, I met a long time ago my MD, Yaz Fukuoka, who's very well known in the cabaret scene in New York City. He's like everyone's MD for 54 Below. And, I saw him perform a few times. I was like, you know what? And I did a show with him, a Christmas show. And I thought, let me ask him. And so I asked him, I was, hey, do you know Beach Boys? Have you ever worked on Beach Boys? And he's like, who? And I was like, yeah, the Beach Boys. I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. I was like, perfect. Okay, so you and I are going to go on this journey because I don't really know them as well either. So let's literally create this together and find out what comes out. Like I'll pick the musicians, you write the arrangements, let's go. So it was like an experiment because like he wasn't a connoisseur either, nor was I. So with Good Vibrations, that was the only song that we did where Yaz was like, okay, we got to do this first section. And then we're going to stop. And then we're going to do this next section. And then we're going to stop. And then we're going to go like, I was like, oh no, this is going to be really hard to, cut and paste at the end of the put this all together like and a part of it they didn't want to put it to click track part of it. I'm very like strict on keep everything to a click track so that if you ever need to edit it, it's not hard. If you don't do this click track, then it's literally whatever the musicians decided to play that day, or so it'll be hard to track that. So that already made me nervous that there was a part of the song where they went off the track and they were just like, doing their own thing. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to like be quiet about it. But sure enough, that was like the hardest song to complete just because there was so many different emotional levels to it. And, like so many like parts that I was like, wait, what does this even mean? And then all of a sudden I started to make meaning for myself, like really be the character and be this man who's like discovering love and the first time with this person, and the way that they're feeling is by these vibrations, and all of these voices are coming out because you're experiencing this person for the first time. So that's kind of like where like my actor brain went. Then later, we put it together and it was great. But when I found out about the original Good Vibrations, it was the first time that he used this cut and paste method in the studio. So like that for him, it took like millions of dollars back in the day at the studio, cutting and pasting this tape and coming in a month before and then coming in a few weeks later, so even for Brian, it was hard to do Good Vibrations. So knowing that it was really hard for him, because I read the book after I did the album, I was like, oh, okay, so it's normal that Good Vibrations is a monster, right? And so luckily, for me, it's such a journey with that song, and it totally came out amazingly, and I couldn't be more prouder of the band and the arrangement. And we did it live for the first time, and it went so well, and I was just like, okay, this is gonna be one of the good songs, because I was afraid of it. It's such a big song, but yeah, it's one of my favorite now.
Yeah, same. It really stands out on the album, and I'm
Thank
curious
you.
what it was like to perform that live, and how much of the album you've been able to perform live so far, and what was the like energy like in that room?
Well, I was not sure what to expect, because, some people think, oh, this is old school music, this kind of thing. But the way we do it, I do it like kind of a la Ronettes. I have two guys backing me up, and we have movement to it, which I'm a theater guy, I'm a dancer. Um, from the Hairspray days, like I know how to do like the 60s moves. So like naturally, this show is very movement oriented, and we're singing and we're doo-wopping, and we have a surfer girl who does not sing at all. She just shows up every now and then and is like starts rocking it out with us dance wise. So it was magical in the room, and I was pleasantly surprised with how many people that were like really like even younger than me, like singing along and like being really enthusiastic. And the surprise of the night was Kokomo. We sang Kokomo and the audience went crazy. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So, okay. Now we know Kokomo's the one. But when we did Good Vibrations, it was wild. It was awesome. It was, it was really cool because it's a very vocally amazing kind of arrangement, but we're dancing our butts off. So it was one of those like just one of a once in a lifetime moments, and we did record it on video. So I'm waiting to see the edits, and it'll forever be a magical night.
I'm excited to see it when it gets posted.
Yes.
In general, the title, even Catch a Wave, feels like the perfect summer
Yeah.
anthem and perfect timing as it's starting to get warm weather again. Was there a particular
Yes.
moment during recording when you knew this project had captured that classic like Beach Boys energy, summertime fun?
Every we did the first song that we recorded was Surfer Girl, and that was the first song that Brian Wilson ever wrote. That was credited just to him. And the first time that I heard all the voices just by themselves, isolated, once I recorded all of the harmonies, that's when I knew that there was something magical here. I was like, okay, keep going. Because there were moments in this project where I was like, oh my God, I don't think this is going to work. Like, it sounds horrible. Like you judge yourself and you're like, so I would go back anytime I felt that way, I would go back and I would isolate exactly where it was. And usually it was because it didn't make me feel something. So I had to wait till I felt, and as soon as I got that like moments, it's almost like the chills feel, you just kind of know like, wow, that's it. It's almost like the project was speaking to me, like this is me. This is who I am. And there were moments where I would add something that I thought was really cool. Yeah, this isn't on the original. Let me try this. And the project was like, nope. I would take it home and it would be like, it would almost be like nails scratching on a chalk, being like, no, don't. Everything in me was saying there. So I felt like I was very guided by the spirit of the music and the spirit of the original writing, because I know that art inspires art, right? And a lot of these songs, Brian was inspired by all the different groups of the 60s. He was dealing with the Beatles and the Ronettes and Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. All of these other greats were all around in that time. So I could feel all of those spirits and when I was hearing all the playbacks. When I felt that, when I was like, okay, this is something that I think they would be proud of, like I was like, okay, we can move on now. Cause it took a while. Like I would not move on. I would be like, all right, nope, next session, we're back on the same song. We'd be doing like these 3 to 4 hour sessions on one song that's a 2 minute song, and I'd be back and be, all right, we're doing that one again. We're gonna, go for the chorus. There was a lot of that. But luckily I had the time, I had the time, and I feel like the inspiration was really there. And what was cool was like I didn't care about if it made money at all. I was just like, I want to make the best solo Beach Boys album I could possibly make. Who are the people that I know who are the best that I could possibly get? And luckily they literally all said yes. Like every person that I asked. So like, I literally couldn't have done it better because these are the ones that I love and I know. And then I know that, I was really beating myself up in that studio, making sure those harmonies were paying homage, they were accurate, and that there was a fresh take as well. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah, and it's amazing when things line up like that, just with the timing and working with the right people, which can make or break
Right.
any kind of project. What was the
Yeah.
importance for you to balance working with others and being collaborative in that way, but also checking in with yourself and making sure you still felt that personal connection with it?
Well, yeah, that's very interesting because once I brought the whole band in, at first we started with having people in the studio and having Yaz come and like kind of help. But then like there became a point where I was like, I really do need to just be alone on this. Now that we have the band down, now that we have everything, from their expertise down, I said, let me just do this, the rest of this, and I'll start sending everybody, the finals. And really, when I really devoted it to just being alone in a room with nobody to perform for, just myself, it really, like I'm kind of a fearless performer anyway, but I was fearless. Like I would try crazy notes. I'd try higher notes than I thought I could do, and even low notes. Even the engineer would be laughing and be like, you sure about that low?" And I'd be like, yeah, I'd be low, trying anything I could to get everything possibly covered that I could. And I really feel like people are gonna jam to it, and people are gonna sing. And that's the really the goal is that I get people to sing because I know what that does for me, like the joy that brings to me. So like if other people are singing along and finding a harmony, even giving grandma the bass note, like let it be and let these people like jam out to it. That's what now it's no longer mine.
And yet there's still your passion that's like throughout the entire record. And it makes me curious of what track on the whole album that you're most proud of when you listen back to it.
Well, it's hard because there's so many like amazing lyrics and storylines behind it all. But I think the one that it keeps coming back to is "Don't Worry, Baby," and I think the reason is because it kind of got me hooked on the project because I heard the storyline behind it. Now, Brian Wilson was so inspired by the bum bum of "Be My Baby," that very famous drum fill that Phil Spector created, and for the wall of sound of that song that he would wake up listening to it every morning. It was like his alarm clock. And he wanted to find his own version of that. And really, he was so inspired that he wrote this song, "Don't Worry, Baby," for Ronnie Spector. But Ronnie Spector couldn't sing it because, all the drama behind Phil Spector and all that stuff. But he recorded it anyway. So okay, that was like, okay, green light on that song. And then when I got into the lyrics of it, and got into the character, who I was going to be in this song. It's all about this kid who challenged his buddies to a car drag race, and he shouldn't have. He's terrified. He can't back down, and all of a sudden he hears on the radio this girl singing, and she's singing in the story, "Don't worry, baby, everything will be all right." And he's getting inspired, and every time he hears the voice, he can do anything, conquer the world, right? And in reality, I'm thinking he's hearing "Be My Baby." It's the Ronettes, and he's kind of using this whole real life inspiration, real life person, creating another like version of it. And now I'm like this character who's like, I challenge my buddies to, I can't back down now because I pushed the other guys too far. That's the lyrics. And so as an actor, I'm like totally like digging that journey, and also the double message that it's the singing, it's the voice, it's that song that's putting him through, that's getting him whatever the accomplishment needs to be, whether it's this drag race that's was at the time, or the metaphor of any race that we have to accomplish, anything that we have to do that we're terrified of, anything that we promise that we're not sure we could do because we told our friends we could. Suddenly a song could come on the radio and you're like, you know what, I could do this. Like you sing a Celine Dion song and you're like, yep, I'm there. I'm the Titanic. And music has the power to turn us all into that hero, and turn us all into the person who overcomes in that 3 minute play, sing through a melody. And the melody is what helps us remember the roadmap. It's the melody's like if we're in a car, this is the way to go to this mountain. So we're gonna go on this emotional journey, and the melody really takes you there. And our voice is the vehicle, and our ears are the vehicle, and all of a sudden, like you said in the beginning of this talk, your mind was the vehicle. Your mind was taking you to a summer vibe all of a sudden. So I'm getting really like heady about this, but I really
That's
feel like
perfect.
Brian Wilson has given me that window. Like he's really kind of opened my mind.
Well, you know what's amazing about that? Just hearing you talk about it and your experience and even the metaphor in it. I'm wondering if there was a part of you that connected with it just because of the process of creating an album. Like you brought these people together, you're like, I can do this, and now you're like, I'm in this, I can't back down.
Yeah, I really am.
How was that experience for you?
Well, I definitely felt a few times, and I was like, gosh, like, is this? Because I didn't want to make an album that sounded like just like a cheesy tribute, like, oh, this is I'm on the Beach Boys now, and I wanted to have something artistic and like modern. So like I just wanted my voice to be my own voice, but I couldn't help but have Frankie Valli come out, right? Because Frankie Valli's been a part of my voice since Jersey Boys and the Midtown Men. I've sung in this way for a certain period of time. So it was interesting to hear that influence through my acting be this character who's a Brian Wilson inspired voice. It was kind of this new person that was just kind of like developing in front of me. And so every time I felt like, oh God, this song's really hard, or this song doesn't sound right, it was almost like that character was the one that was saying, no, continue to tell my story. It wasn't even Brian's story necessarily. It wasn't even mine. It was this like brand new person who I didn't even know. Cause like, as I told you before, that voice was coming out and I was like, who the hell is that? So when I listen to that album, I think this spirit, whoever the spirit is living through in Brian Wilson's music. And I'm like this vessel that I decided, I'm going to be the vessel for this. And all of a sudden it became something that was more than just a cover album, more than just something that's going to be a great showcase. It's like this whole arc of someone, and like I'm still getting to know him because like I'm to the point where I'm listening. So now I'm like, okay, I can't do anything, I can't change it anymore. That's it. This is him. So to really be able to now experience it is pretty interesting, because now I'm a listener. Now I'm an audience member. Um, and soon I'll probably move on to the next thing. But that little character, that guy is going to be there forever. And I think that is like the best gift that I could ever give myself, is to have this little version of me kind of forever living in the digital world, giving his heart and soul, and hopefully teaching people how to speak to whatever they're going through. A lot of these songs are speaking to real emotions, real things that we all go through. Even on the fun, and all those like amazing songs, it's literally life.
Definitely. And I think you're definitely leaving a mark and leaving an impression. And it makes me curious then, are there any plans to go on the road and perform this album more? And if so, how is listening now to the album gonna kind of maybe influence how you perform it?
Well, we just signed with a new agency, so yes, the plan is that they're going to be taking all of our materials, all of the album, and all these live footage that we're curating of the shows that we've done, and make a tour of it starting in the fall is the hope. I know it's going to see the light with other people. It already has. So I just hope that more opportunities come for that, because to be able to like record it, know it's awesome, and give it to the world, great, right? I'm not going to know who's listening. I'm not going to know who's jamming out. I'm not going to probably never see it. Maybe on TikTok, let's hope. But when you see them do it live and in front of you, and I see people that are like, what is this? We're going to a Beach Boy show. What is this? And then they see that it's actually me and I'm presenting a completely different version, like visually, of what they would expect to see from this like cover band, right? They're seeing all of a sudden this guy with these two Ronettes, these dudes doing dancing to songs that they kind of know. And all of a sudden I'm like really explaining like where these songs come from. And to see people like learn and be like, oh, aha, bing, really? That's what that means? Changing the identity for themselves of this catalog. and opening up their minds to the possibilities of more. And that was pretty cool to see that live. So I hope we get a bigger chance to do that nationally, because I really think we all need positivity right now. And positivity really does live in the spirit of these songs. And doing it live really forces people. Like, you can't help it. I looked at in the audience, man, everybody was singing along. You literally cannot help it. So that's like forced therapy. And so, I mean, it would be good. It would be good for all of us, and great for me, because I would love to keep singing these songs and get any opportunity to do them live.
Well, I'm manifesting. I believe that that's going to happen. And, I think in anyone's creative journey, there's a lot of twists and turns, and sometimes things take us beyond what we thought was possible and in places we never
Yeah,
even dreamed up. I think this album is probably an example of one of those things for you. And so I'm curious, if you
absolutely.
could dream without limits, are there other possibilities of what you would want to do in the future, whether it's more albums like this or even turning it into a musical?
Yeah, that would be, you ding right there, you and me, we're connecting on a level. That would be amazing. I always tell, like, I tell I call them the Surf Notes. It's my band, but it's the singers and the surfer girl. And I'm always telling them, well, when we do this on Broadway, we'll have this, I'm always like manifesting that. So like, if this could like get national attention to the point where people really do connect with the album, I think that would be a lovely possibility. Something like that, like a bigger space, or 92nd Y, or something big like that, a PBS special, any of those things. I would love to make this grow, and I think the only way to really find out like what really works is to do it over and over and over on the road or in a little run, because what we saw at the Laurie Beachman when we did it live, like, that was magic. But who knows if that would happen the second time? You really have to see, and if different audiences react the same way to these different moments. One of the interesting things that happened in the live show is that, just so that we could catch our breath, we're like, let's go to the audience and ask some questions. Because so we went out there, we are like, so, like, does anybody have any memories of the beach, or is any song coming up? And at first they were like, crickets, crickets. So then I was like, well, what if I give you an album? So I brought out my Catch a Wave LP, it's on vinyl now. And they're like, oh, okay, I have a story for you, right? So then this guy told a story about how, when he was a teenager, his father gave him the Pet Sounds record from the Beach Boys, and then a month later he passed away, and everybody was like, "Oh, like, really?" They got all somber all of a sudden, but then he was saying how that album was what he held on to for the rest of his life, and every time he hears these songs, he hears his dad and he feels his dad, and how hearing these songs tonight is bringing that memory back. And I was like, thank you so much for like sharing that, because that's literally why we're doing this, is to like see what happens and experience these memories. And he probably didn't even think about that memory until we just sang that song, and all of a sudden he's sharing it, and he felt so comfortable with the room of strangers to really share such an intimate story. But it was like dead on. I was like, this is exactly what we're talking about, that this music makes people connect on a level that's beyond life, and it's literally forever, right? As long as this guy lives, he's always going to have that connection to his dad and the Beach Boys. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it shows just the human connection and how music can take people who are vastly different in different parts of the world and connect them with a similar feeling and experience, which I think is a beautiful part about
Yeah.
music. And it shows with how you connect with the music. And so, in terms of talking about possibilities and maybe a show in the future, things like that, what would you prefer if you were given the option? Would it be something like Jersey Boys, where you're telling the story of the Beach Boys, or a completely original story with Beach Boys music?
Yeah, it'd probably be a mixture of both, because like really my experience with it is that, like, it kind of has brought back my dad as well. Like, my dad passed away right before the pandemic, and he wasn't necessarily a Beach Boys fan, but I grew up in California. So like, when I started to go into this music, beyond discovering like these cool stories, these backstories, and also these other songs that were like kind of on the B side, it really was reminding me of California. And when I think of California, I think about like my childhood and my dad and my growing up, and the Dodgers and hot dogs, and random things like that were coming up. So it kind of is interesting that the father figure kind of is living in that music as well. Maybe it's because it's a bunch of dudes, they're bringing their guy vibe. But other people have said that as well, that it reminds them of their dad or that it reminds them of time with their family at a young age.
Yeah, which I think is a beautiful thing, especially like I mean, we said about music transporting you to a different place, but yeah, it's a different time, different memories, nostalgia,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And yet, I think you putting a spin on it also brings it this new life in present day, which, like you said, we really do need nowadays. We need that
Yeah.
positivity and that good time.
It would be interesting to like tell the story like how I discovered it, and maybe that is what the bigger picture of the show is how somebody who can be knocked down so much. I mean, we're all knocked down during the pandemic. And it took us, I mean, I'm sure it took you a long time. It took me years to find a reason to sing again. So to connect to a different generation and to find that it was there all along, right? It was right at my fingertips. And all I had to do was open it. I think that really is what the night with me is that I opened it and we're opening it together now. And what does it do to you? What is this ancient scroll, right, of melodic channels going to do to you? Where is it going to take us? And for everybody, it's going to be different. And I think by me showing how it changed me, I think that's going to open other people to be like, wow, how is this changing me? And when they leave, they're going to think about a bunch of stuff in their life. You can't help but do that when you listen to music that is talking about something that's a struggle, and all these songs are talking about human struggle, just trying to survive and love at the same time.
Exactly. And I think the beauty in what you said also is realizing that it was all there. The magic was there. You just have to go reach for it. And
Yeah.
that's a big lesson. I mean, I learned it after the pandemic and because I was in a similar spot and just to get this rolling and start talking to people and have this space was a big deal. And it's like I could have done this the whole time and I wasn't ready yet. And so there's
Yeah,
something beautiful about that. And it seems like Catch a Wave has really been part of a big part of your artistic journey and has me curious what that means
absolutely.
for your future.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like a part B or a part two album that will eventually come out in maybe a year of the Beach Boys of this whole project. But there's also an originals album that I did already. It's been recorded, it's all ready to go. But before I released it, I and that was the thing that I was recording before the pandemic. So I was after my movie album, like they do in the movies, I had the band already recorded for this new album. I had some of the vocals done, and then all this horrible stuff was happening, and everything got shut down. Right, so then I just couldn't get back in. I couldn't get back in, and finally I did. When I started to listen to the Beach Boys and get inspired, I said, "Let me finish this album really quick." I finished it, and then all of a sudden I was able to devote my time. But I didn't want to release that yet because what was calling me was the Beach Boys. Now that that's done, now I got to really see and focus my time on how I'm going to tell the story of my original music, because that story I was talking about how this album, Catch a Wave, is from the perspective of this young man, right? Who I don't know, who we're discovering. This one is about me. This one is about this person, my experiences, things that I went through, so it's going to be a different kind of rollout. And I'm thinking, I'm really trying to take my time on it and really devote, like, how am I going to really tell my story? Because it's super personal and it's all from my perspective as somebody living in New York City, trying to get by and also just it's also like the story of trying to get back into love after all that horror, so it's a bunch of stories similar to Catch a Wave, but it's all my own.
Yeah, and it's first of all, I'm very glad you're working on also your personal album and how personal you're connecting with it and for wanting it to be special to you and take your time with it. And so it has me curious about the importance of not only having something personal, but spreading your passions, like doing these different projects and ideas and
Yeah.
hopes and dreams instead of just the one thing, which sometimes can be very hard.
Yeah, well, it was interesting with when started to record it. I knew that the album was going to be done. I had a presentation I wanted to do for New York. It was called APAP. It was in January. It was only a 20-minute showcase slot where like a bunch of different acts like come in and back to back to back to back. So I wanted to introduce Catch a Wave to the world in that, in my mind, oh, this will be the first time anybody sees anything of this. So I literally had dreams of the girl that is in the show as the surfer girl. I had worked with her in a musical before, like years before, never talked to her since. But every time as I was recording this album and I was thinking about what would this look like, because it's going to be two girls and two guys behind me. It's going to be one girl, two guys. Like I thought of everything, but I kept coming back to this girl because she was this amazing dancer. So I was like, okay, well, let me just see if she's available. So I asked her. She said yes. Okay, great. Oh, and I told her, I was like, I don't know what this project is. I'm doing this album. And she's like 25. I'm like, do you know the Beach Boys? She's like, who? So she had no idea who the Beach Boys were. And then I was introducing it to her, and we were doing these steps together and creating the vibe of what this means with me. I'm not playing an instrument. A lot of those guys are playing instruments, and I'm just there. I'm singing and I'm dancing, right? So what does that look like? So I would go in there with like what I thought it was, and we would work together. And then when I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna have to have somebody sing with me. I can't do it alone. So then I thought of these two guys that I've always admired their voices as soloists, and I've always wanted a project to do with them. And same thing. I asked them, listen, I think this might be right for you. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, sure. Bam, magical. The four of us, we were like, kismet. So, I just felt like everything kept falling into place. So by the time we got to that APAP presentation, it was like just like rocket fire. I was like, wow, like the energy in the room too was like ignited, and we were like, okay, it was only 20 minutes. That was like 7 songs. Now what does it feel like to do an hour? And that's what we just got to it. We just got to work, and it was the most fulfilling artistic thing because it was all my endeavor, and I was like picking the best people that I love and giving them an opportunity to be creative and giving them the Beach Boys. They didn't know it either. The two guys, they're like, oh, sure. Like, yeah, we know them kind of. And I'm making them do all these crazy harmonies that I already knew because I went through the pain of recording them. But they're like, what do you want me to do? So, we literally discovered it together. And beyond the character that lives on the album, now there's the character of these guys that are like friends that are doing these songs and communicating the story behind it. And then there's the spirit of this surfer girl who kind of like really embodies what the vibe is of all of these songs, like of this magical girl, like this girl that's gonna, be the fun of the party, and she's gonna give me the good vibrations, and she's gonna help me Rhonda. It's always about this like unknown girl that somehow is like magically on the beach all the time, just chilling out with her surfer board. So she kind of like embodies like a modernized version of that. We're not in bikinis and shorts. We're in jeans and like other kind of coats. We're just kind of like doing our modern version of it, but the spirit really is there. So to see it live and to do it live, although it is super hard, it's a big lift. These are one of the greats. We did it with like magic, and we just had the whole audience with us, and I think that really is a testament to the music. The music is golden. Anybody hears it, they love it.
Definitely the music, and I think also your passion for it, your love, and just working with the right people. That is usually
Yeah.
what I hear is so much of the magic, working with good people who you can just be comfortable with and you know how to work with and they know how to work with you, and it just comes together in this magical way. And I think it shows on the album and it'll show on stage. And that makes me curious then where you find magic the most, in whether it's in the music or in performing or in your life in general.
I find myself singing like all the time now. I mean, I always go through like periods of like artistic endeavor where I'm like, I gotta do a show at 54 Below. Like, I'll get like a ding, like an idea, and then I'll realize, oh, it's a big push up a hill to like get these shows together. So it's always like a commitment to do it, but it really is like when I decide to like dive into a playlist and really like the catalog of the Beach Boys. I did it with ABBA once, like a year ago. And I was like, when I really dive into somebody's catalog and really like immerse myself, that's really what gives me the passion, what really ignites my creativity. Because I always see myself in anything, any music. It doesn't matter if it's a girl or guy or group. Once I can really understand the lyric and the storyline behind it, it's like it's my story. It's literally. I don't know if everybody has that experience. Maybe I'm crazy, but literally, when I hear a song, it's like I'm singing it about myself. And it doesn't even matter like if I've lived that experience. I'm not thinking, oh yeah, this reminds me of something I just did. It's not. not that at all. I'm just the character, whoever the character is singing about that specific thing. And it's crazy that I'm able to do that. But I feel like I started doing that as a young kid because I didn't have kids my age around me. So like I had a huge imagination. And I mean, I have this memory of me like as a 6 year old singing a song, right? That I knew the melody of it. I didn't know what I was saying. But now as an adult, I know what song it was. And it was Johnny Angel. Do you know that song? Johnny Angel, Johnny Angel, Johnny
Yeah, I
Angel,
have heard it.
you're an angel to me. I must have heard it. Johnny Angel, yes, I love him. So I remember as a kid going da 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 da, and like so I must have heard it. And the only thing that I remembered lyric wise was Johnny Angel, Johnny Angel. So like now as an adult, being like recalling that memory and being like, oh wait, now I know that song. Wait a minute, now I can in the digital world I can listen to it right now. And then all of a sudden, I was like, yes, that was the song that I was obsessed with as a 6 year old. Somehow I must have heard it on the radio and once or twice, because obviously I was going to play it back. And the melody and the storyline, whatever, the vibe of it touched me so much that I had to repeat it. This little 6 year old kid walking around like in the yard singing Johnny Angel, like what? So I've always been able to access my imagination through music. And it's funny that it's always been old school music, that's one of the old school classics.
I think what's part of the old school music part of it is that there's so much storyline to those songs. And I think
Yeah.
that really just comes into play with the performing. And like you said, there's a lot of magic in that, and stepping into that and really feeling like you're embodying the character in the song, I think is a special thing. I think I
Yeah.
did that plenty of times as a kid. Now there's times where it's like I'll make playlists based on what I'm feeling in my life right now and feel like I am that person singing. And
Yeah.
it's powerful. And so it
Yeah.
makes me curious now that you put out this album and you're working on other stuff. How do you hope to create magic for other people?
Well, I think what I always thought, like when I did my Broadway Brick by Brick album, I was singing all these diva girl songs, but in my key. So I was like, with the Broadway Brick by Brick, I was like, I'm giving people permission, especially guys, to sing the F out of these songs in their key, like, singing as if we never said goodbye and, music in the mirror. Like I really went there. I didn't even realize like that I was choosing almost, but once I did that project, I was like, oh well, I'm giving people the permission to sing these songs, to be these women, to be these women in their own voice, and not even to because they want to be a woman, just to like experience the character of that woman in that show, like what she went through, like as a human. So with this project, I really do hope that it's obvious I'm giving people permission to like the '60s again, to like the Beach Boys again, to discover them. A lot of times we think old bands or old school bands are like, oh yeah, whatever. What's Lady Gaga doing, or like what's Taylor Swift doing? Yeah, well, they're great too, but they've all been influenced as well by these greats. So to hear it in a new way, I hope people really do take it in and are like, oh wow, that's the Beach Boys song. I hope they think like, what is this at first, and then I hope they're pleasantly surprised when they realize that it's been there all along and it's one of the songs that they've always known but didn't really know.
Well, I think it's got that magic in it, and I think it's definitely going to have that effect.
Thank
I'm
you.
crossing my fingers for all the things that this album's going to bring
Yes.
and everything you're doing. Michael, thank you so much for being on. Like, it's just great hearing your process and journey because I can tell the love and the passion you have for what you're doing. And I think that's why you make such magical final products. Like, it just makes me excited for what you're going to do next.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the album and to really take me in, because that's all my heart and soul right there. So if you're able to really listen to it, you're really experiencing like me and my spiritual realm or whatever, like my vocal anything. Like you're literally getting to know who I am at the core. And for somebody who's such an introvert, like in life, and who doesn't like to let anybody know anything about me, like that is like there's no hiding. That is totally who I am. And to be able to know that somebody took the time to take me in, I love that. So thank you for that.
And you could absolutely feel it when you listen to the album. So you said there's a physical vinyl that people could buy?
Yes, we're figuring out how to distribute that. But yes, if you come to a live show, you can get it. And soon it'll be available on the website, which is catchawavelive.com.
I'm gonna drop that link and the link to your Instagram below when we drop this
Yeah.
episode. But Michael, you're a magic maker. Thank you again for being on, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited to share this episode with the world.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And keep singing those songs.
Obviously, all the time. It's gonna be a good
Yes.
summer. So everyone out there who's listening, go out there, play the album, and do some magic. See you next time.
Catch a wave.